What's up, guys? So 2 days ago, I made a video covering Charlie Kirk's assassination, and yesterday they actually found the suspected killer. Now, found is a pretty strong word because what actually happened is the suspected killer went to his dad and confessed the killing and said he'd rather kill himself, and then his dad called their pastor, who ended up calling the US Marshals, and then they went and detained him. Now, something to point out here is that Tyler Robinson, the suspected killer, had friends and family come out and say that he really wasn't that political until the last few years. Now, there is some very disgusting things that were discovered when he was detained and his stuff was searched, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, because I just want to talk really quick about how this brings up an incredible point of how politics in the last couple of years have been taken to the most extreme points that they can be. Now, politics and stuff have always been a very, they've always had a group of very, extremist people, obviously, but it was such a small percent that it wasn't that important. In America, especially, it wasn't as large of a group that were that percentage, but now it's growing to where these radicals and these extremists are becoming normalized, and these extreme views, these extreme actions that they're taking are just becoming normal things that people feel completely comfortable to talk about. And I think the most obvious tell of this, and at least before this situation had happened, was a lot of these very far left Twitch streamers and stuff like Hassan Piker, Noah Sampson, he's a YouTuber, not as much of a Twitch streamer, I believe, but they would very clearly be inciting violence, and nothing has happened. No repercussions have come of that, and I just think that's terrible and should not be the case. People should not be this comfortable to be inciting violence and making very obvious threats as long as they're not exactly direct threats. But yeah, that kind of leads into this situation now where it's so much more blatant than before. Right before this situation, it was still super obvious, right? You could see it everywhere, but it was, once again, it felt like a small percentage. But now you see all of these people that follow these super, mostly far left. I actually will be completely honest. You see it on the far right too, just significantly less, at least from what I've seen in my experiences. Since this situation has begun, I have seen countless videos of people saying, fuck the family, why would you feel bad for them? They had a terrible father, so why feel bad? They're his kids. And then fuck the wife. She married a shitty person. She's probably a shitty person too. But it doesn't matter that he's a shitty person. What matters is that he was murdered in cold blood in front of an audience. And what matters is that he was alive and is now dead because he shared his opinion publicly and had a public debate, which should not be the case. And I cannot stress this enough. I supported Charlie Kirk, and I genuinely really liked a lot of his takes. Some of them I disagreed with, but I would be saying the exact same thing even if it was the most far right extremist who was or the most far left extremist who was over here saying some absolutely heinous shit that wasn't threatening anyone and wasn't putting anyone into direct danger by inciting violence. I would be saying the exact same thing. Someone could come out and give the absolute wildest take. Look at Kanye. I'm a huge fan of his music and stuff, but he's gone a little bit off the deep end. Now, let's say something happened to him. I would be saying the exact same thing. He's sharing his opinion. From what I've seen, at least, he hasn't put threats out saying, we need to kill this person. We need to do this to this person. We have direct access to these people. So I would be saying the exact same thing in any other situation similar to this. So I just feel like celebrating or even saying you feel nothing for them and that they deserved it is just so messed up. And I keep seeing people now reposting videos that are like, how could you be celebrating this man's life when he was an asshole? Well, it doesn't fucking matter that he was an asshole. What matters is that he's dead. Even if you think he's a dick, if you think he's the worst person ever, he hasn't killed anyone. He hasn't done anything absolutely heinous, and he hasn't incited violence directly against anybody. So all these people saying you don't understand because you're white. No, that's fucking stupid. We're saying he didn't deserve to die. It doesn't matter. You could be racist even, and I don't think you deserve to die. And one thing I saw that made me so upset was this one person that I don't really know that well. I spoke to them once or twice. I saw them post something where they had said something along the lines of, well, he kind of deserved it because he went into politics. How could you even be surprised? He even expected it. He had a bulletproof vest on. So we need to put this situation past us because he deserved to die and he knew it, which just really made me so upset, and it made my stomach turn because How can you think that about somebody? He went into politics and knew it was dangerous, yes, but it shouldn't be, so why should we just put this situation past us? The reason we shouldn't put it past us is because we have our First Amendment right, and we should be able to talk about whatever we want to, specifically politically, because the second you silence one group of politics or make people scared to talk about something, which is the same thing generally as silencing, then what you get is a tyranny. I personally hate Dean Withers. I think when he debates, it's not as much of a debate as it should be. Now, I'd be terrible at debates, right? My brain doesn't work that quickly, unless it's with math. But at least he has the dignity to go out and stand up for Charlie Kirk and say, how could you celebrate his death? That's disgusting. So, mad respect out to Dean Withers for standing up for himself and saying he's not backing down, and he does respect Charlie Kirk, or that he does think he still deserves to live, as everyone should be thinking. And the next thing is that Charlie, Moist Critical, he actually came out with a response to catching the killer, and he said he's responded on stream. I'm not sure. I don't watch many of his streams, but he is one of my favorite YouTubers by far. And he had an incredible video on the situation. He also had a very good take, which was super refreshing to see. Definitely recommend going and watching his video. So I guess we're now back to the disgusting things I wanted to talk about that were just so disturbing. So the bullets were inscribed with phrases, not exactly the ones that were shot, but the ones that the police found after searching him. They found one that said, "Hey fascist, catch," and "O Bella Cio," which from an article I found says "Goodbye, Beautiful" in Italian, which is a song that was sang in the Italian resistance against Nazi Germany. And on the case that was fired, they actually found a message that said, "Notices bulges, oh, what's this?" Which for everyone saying he deserved to die, that just shows that they are on the side of the person who wrote these disturbingly creepy messages on these bullet casings of just memes and stuff before assassinating somebody. Does that not seem like something that should be taken seriously? The fact that he's joking around right before and during an assassination just really shows who you're siding with. Not to mention the only people I've personally known that have said he deserved to die were lesbian, gay, and all had pink hair, besides one, but she was still lesbian. So I was also scrolling on Reels and I saw something that was kind of gross to me, and I just wanted to share it on here.
Rise for a moment of prayer for Charlie Kirk and his family. Let's, wait a minute. The House will be in order. The House will be in order. The House will be in order.
Now, I shouldn't really have to point out the problem with this, but a lot of people clearly didn't understand it. The problem is that they asked for a moment of silence, or at least a moment of prayer, for Charlie Kirk and his family. He was Christian, so I think that's reasonable to ask for. Now, a lot of people are saying like, oh, but this person, when they died, they didn't get a moment of prayer in Congress, which I understand somewhat, not really, because the person that they're talking about is like a minor case. Obviously, when a huge famous person dies who has a huge following, it's going to leave a bigger impact. Especially when they're that large of a political figure. Now, I'm sure the other people you were talking about weren't huge political figures, especially with such a young following and such a large following. So, yeah, that's my first point. The second is leave religion out of politics, which is ridiculously stupid because Charlie Kirk is Christian and his family is Christian, so they ask for a prayer. And like, if you're in another country and they do this, and they ask for like a prayer of whatever type they have, out of respect, you just stay silent. You don't even have to pray for him. You can just stay silent while people do. But you don't need to act like a child and yell fuck you and like shut the fuck up and stuff like that, because he's asking for a moment of prayer for someone who he knew and someone who is Christian. And also, he's allowed to do that. And it's like the whole separate politics and religion, but at the same time, like, in God we trust. America is, and a lot of our laws are based off of Christian morality. I also saw something that is once again disturbing that someone reposted, and it was a clip of Charlie Kirk advocating for the death penalty, saying it needs to be public, fast, and deserved. And they were saying how ironic that was, but Charlie Kirk didn't deserve to die. it was brutal. It was not quick. He bled out, and it was in front of an audience, sure, but that's the only thing that's truthful about that. He didn't get the death penalty. He got assassinated. People don't understand that. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous how you can make these connections and jump from point A to point fucking 12. Like, it makes zero sense how we're just jumping between extreme scenarios and connecting the dots that don't even fucking exist. Because if you take 2 seconds to think about that, we don't have people getting shot publicly for the death penalty. When you have death penalty, what happens is a certain amount of people, I'm not sure exactly how many or exactly who, get to go into a room to witness the death penalty. All we have now, only in some states, is lethal injection, which is considered the most humane way to kill someone, at least that we have for the most part. He got shot in the neck in front of an audience and didn't deserve to die. I mean, that's pretty much all I have for y'all today. I'm going to try to keep y'all updated on everything that's going on. And I just want to let y'all know, whenever you think about stuff and you have time, if you're going to share your opinion publicly, try to think logically and not jump to a conclusion. Try to think at least partially neutrally, especially when it comes to stuff like this. Like, someone was assassinated. This is a political topic, but I feel like you shouldn't be picking sides when you're not focusing on the politics of it. Personally, I'm focusing on the death of an innocent man, not the politics side of it, although there are some politics and stuff sprinkled in. I don't know too much about politics exactly, but I just feel like a lot more people need to think logically and need to take time to think things through and need to accept that you can be wrong, because the problem we see a lot nowadays is people refuse to accept when they're wrong, even to themselves. Like, they could be sitting there alone and they could come up with some crazy delusion in their head and they could see evidence against it, or like a very clear step-by-step thing against it, and they'll just push it out because for some reason they don't allow themselves to be wrong, even in their own head. And that just needs to stop. We need to start thinking for ourselves. We need to start thinking critically and logically and taking some time to think things through. Prayers to Charlie Kirk, prayers to his wife and kids. I hope they can do better and can cope with this well. And I guess that's pretty much all I have for you guys today. Thanks for watching. Bye.